Now, hello everybody, and welcome back to Live with Roger Hanson. Today we have an interview. It's a good one, and this is going to be with George Ramsey. George Ramsey, welcome to the show, and welcome Karma. She's going to be on the panel, and today I want to turn it over to you, George, and kind of give us a background about yourself and let everybody know where you're from, stuff like that, and just think everything in general that you'd want to tell us about yourself. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you because you was in a good conversation before we got on here, so I don't want to interrupt that. That sounded really good, so you're fired
Well,
up.
my interest in government began when the school I was going to decided to teach us the democratic process. And for the first time in, 59, 60, 61, 63, 64, in 1965, they decided that we should have class presidents, not like officers, presidents, secretary, treasurer, and sergeants of arms. And out of 12 people who knew each other, I was chosen president. When we choose a president in this corporation, we don't know those people. And we have no idea what their allegiance is or what their background is or anything. All we know is that they're a Republican or a Democrat. Nobody else is allowed into that uniform party that they have up at the District of Criminals. And in the 8th grade, I saw a picture of Peter the Great's soldiers cutting the beards and the hair and the long coats off of the Russians in a white background of snow on the tree limbs, on the ground. The only thing that wasn't white was what had been cut off of these individuals, and their coats had been shortened so that they would look like what the French and the English were wearing. And the only reason, the way he could resist the onslaught from the West that is pressing against Putin today, the very same one. And he had to uniform his people so that he would know he had become militaristic, in other words, to the point where he would know exactly who was following his orders and who is not. And that's why you had the hippies getting in all this trouble against the war in Vietnam, because they were not following orders. They were not cutting their hair. Like myself, when I didn't cut my hair, my dad said, "I never tell you anything twice. You don't cut your hair tomorrow, don't come back here." Well, I didn't go back here, but he was right next door because he'd moved out of the house into his workshop, and I just wasn't allowed to be on his side of the property anymore. And so I didn't have to go far to get away from my dad. But nevertheless, I lost him until my little brother was killed. And the same day I got a 2-year scholarship to school, college, the indoctrination centers, in other words. But that's another sad story. The fact is that I've been aware of what I didn't realize. When I saw that picture of Peter the Great cutting the hair and coats and making these Russians look like Frenchmen and Englishmen, I didn't know that the Frenchmen and Englishmen were princes of the papacy. And if you'll go to constitutionallaborparty.com that I put together to run against Abbott, in other words, the Federalists, the Maritime Admiralty, Maritime Law Federalists, Democrat and Republican, Davis and Abbott in 2015. You go there, and the first thing you're going to come to is the Treaty of Paris of 1763 that ended the French and Indian War, also known as the 7 Years' War, between England and France to decide who was going to be the Prince Elector and Arch Collector of the misnomer Holy Roman Empire, otherwise known to me as the Roman Republic, which went by the name of Holy Roman Empire. And today it's the empire of the city, consisting of the District of Criminals, the true title of that, after they changed the name of Rome, Maryland, over to the District of Columbia. That is actually the corporation of the city-state. City-state. I've heard silly people talking about making it another state. It's already a state. State more powerful than all the 50 states put together, because it is the military arm of the papacy. And their financial center is the inner city of London on the fort that they built there when they conquered England way back 70 years after Jesus died. There's some people that they don't believe that there's Jesus or a devil or anything like that. They believe that we won the Revolution and the War of 1812 and the Civil War was about slavery. They believe all those lies, and they believe that they're kin to monkeys. It's just a horrible thing that we're up against, trying to make sense, common sense, which is what I am, common law jurisdiction sheriff Rattlesnake Ramsey, the first one since 1938, when the bank took legal possession of the corporation and usurped common law jurisdiction based on the Magna Carta and common sense, and replaced it with Admiralty Maritime Law jurisdiction based on commerce. That was brought about, and if you go to Sheep Survival, that I've also made available to you at the constitutionallabor.party.com, you'll see Howard Freeman and his son, both Howard Freemans, and the dad is going to teach you sheep survival, in other words, how to use common law jurisdiction defenses in court using Magna Carta defenses, as he calls them, 38 and 45, like using the 38 and 45, very powerful defenses. And things that you haven't been taught, not in your law school, you weren't taught that. But the judges know, they take silent judicial notice of this, and they just pocket the money that comes their way. So without taking the whole hour of sitting up here like a teacher, maybe there's a couple of questions that you might have for me by now.
Yeah, when you were talking, there's three of them actually on top of my head, but one thing I want you to kind of go through and explain to everybody, when you're saying indoctrination, can you go a little bit more into detail on that and kind of tell people how that works and kind of dive in on that a little bit?
Okay. When I took anthropology, because I couldn't make it in music, because I couldn't learn to play the piano good enough to pass Piano 1, after taking it 3 times, I had to change my minor from music to anthropology. And in the anthropology, the first thing that kind of startled me and caught my attention was that they put human beings with the primates, along with the lemurs and the gorillas and chimpanzees and spider monkeys and that's indoctrination into the evolution bullshit. And then in sociology class, I was surprised to learn that they wasn't just upper class, middle class, and lower class, but rather upper, middle upper, and lower upper, and upper middle, and middle and lower middle, and upper lower, and middle lower, and lower. And I have taken poetic license and added one more to this group of commoners. And I've added the upper homeless and the middle homeless and the lower homeless to that. And they did not mention the gentlemen and the esquires and the knights and the gentry and the aristocracy. They did not mention that those people are members of what they call today the elite. They just changed the name. They changed the name from the War Department to the Defense Department. They changed the name of eugenics from eugenics to Planned Parenthood. They changed the name of the Chemistry Department to the Food and Drug Administration. They have no problem with using a different name to obfuscate what they're doing.
All
Is that?
right. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, here, let me give you some more. When I was taking American history, which is the most important thing, first of all, you don't have very many American history students because we don't need that many American history teachers. So
Mhm.
it's not that that's not that many students. And secondly, one day my teacher, Mr. Light, said, "I'm going to give you some notes for your test." And on those notes was George Washington pardoned the Tories. It's going to be on your test, and that could be like, did George Washington pardon the Tories? True or false? Or George Washington pardon blank the Tories? George Washington pardoned the blank. Something or multiple choice. George Washington pardoned the Iroquois. He pardoned the Hessians, or he pardoned the Tories. Which one is it? A, B, or C? Something very simple-minded like that. That's what kind of stuff you get in these institutions of higher learning. And if you want to get really indoctrinated, go to Harvard or go to Georgetown University. Georgetown University is the den of snakes, and those snakes are Jesuits. And they say when you get out of Georgetown University, like one of those CIA guys, or many of these people that are in higher positions, they have no loyalty to family nor country, and especially since this isn't a country, it's a corporation.
Mhm.
Oops, what happened?
Oh, you're there. You're there. It's just I was muting so that I could give you the full stage of it and everything. So now,
I can hear you, but I don't see.
oh, it's just you. You're front and center.
Okay. Well, now the thing was that here's the deal about George Washington pardoned the Tories. Why did George Washington pardon the Tories? Well, George Washington pardoned the Tories because the Most High of the Holy Roman Empire told him to do so. And the Most High of the Holy Roman Empire has a vassal that you know as the United Kingdom or Great Britain. And Great Britain, the monarch of Great Britain, King Charles III today, is the Prince Elector and Arch Collector for the Holy Roman Empire, otherwise known as the Empire of the City today, and way back when, in the past, when they killed Caesar for getting too big for his britches and crossing the Rubicon, he crossed the red line. In other words, they went ahead and killed him. And these are the people that I'm talking about. What happened?
I just they just lost your camera is all.
Okay,
You can hear
well,
me. You can
all
hear me
right.
though, right?
I can hear you. I don't know how to bring this thing back, but
Oh, it's fine.
wait a minute. Get started. Maybe.
I'd rather
Oh,
have your
okay.
voice above
Okay.
anything. When it comes off or when it comes back on, it'll pop your video back on. So let me
right.
let me ask you something else too. Now I'm kind of drawn between the next questions because you brought up some good topics, but I'm gonna skip over two of them and ask you this one because I think this is important from what you were talking about with indoctrination. Could you explain to everybody a little bit more about maritime laws? Kind of give everybody a little bit of a explanation on what you mean by that.
Maritime is commerce by the sea, okay, and that's how they did commerce before. And in the past, when there was a bad merchant that wasn't paying for his commerce, he would be assassinated. They had assassins that would take care of that problem, and Rome decided that it was better to give these people an opportunity to have courts to go to, and so they made a good thing by making a commerce courts, but it was bad because they turned everything into commerce instead of law, because law only addresses damage. And can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, law addresses damage, and legal compels performance, the letter to the letter. That's like you sign a contract and you've got to, what's it say? Alert, session expired. Please log in. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
I don't know what's going on with this phone. Well, anyway, be that as it may, that's contract law. We're under contract law, and that's one of the things that you do when you defend yourself in court, is that prove that I have signed a contract with you when you're dealing with common law defenses. That if you'll go to, I made that, and also I'll back up a little bit. Howard Freeman, the son, his blog is UCC, the UCC connection. It's basically the same thing. And back to what the water, commerce by water, they've got it to the point where it went to the point of our existence itself. In other words, your mother's water breaks, and you come down the birth canal, and you land at the dock, and the dock fills out a manifest of goods delivered, and that's called a birth certificate. And when you get that birth certificate, you become a person, and a person is a corporation. And so you completely understand that concept. The
Yes.
United States is a corporation. It is not a country. It is not the United States of America. It is the corporation of the United States.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
all right.
I understand that. I was really big on Maxwell, and Jordan Maxwell was always big on talking about that in his earlier days. So
Yes, he was. That's where I probably picked up this information.
so that's one reason why I thought that was important, is when you mentioned that, because I think the viewers should know about that, because that's really something that gets missed a lot of times.
Well, then I'll just it is the precursor to the currency. Okay, as far as subject matter is concerned. Now I can go into the currency, because the currency is the same thing as this maritime admiralty, maritime law jurisdiction that we're under, because it comes from the same place. It comes from the papacy. And the currency of the Federal Reserve Bank is the very same currency as the satanic papacy's Vatican Bank currency. It just has the name Federal Bank on it instead of Vatican Bank. It's a subsidiary, just as much as the Bank of England is a subsidiary of it, and was a subsidiary of it when it was imposed on the colonists that had about 10 years of leeway to come up with a better way to handle their own affairs. And when they came up with their own currency, and sovereign states, the 13 colonies were sovereign states with their own militias for common defense and common currency with their common non-interest bearing currency based on production. That was called colonial script. And when King George needed money to pay back the money that he borrowed to defeat the French, he started looking at the colonies that were doing really, really good. And he decided to put the debt slavery producing Bank of England, satanic Vatican Bank, papacy, otherwise referred to as usury in theological terms, onto these very Christian colonists, and they rebelled against having their prosperity being cut to the bone, to the point where instead of being the envy of their English cousins, I emphasize English cousins because they're white English cousins, just so everybody gets that through their noggins. And they rebelled against it, and they came up with the Declaration of Independence and followed through with that. Unfortunately, they did not win. They were defeated by the same way that the English were defeated, by treachery, by one of their own being a traitor. In this case, it was Washington and the other guys, along with Jefferson, Hamilton, and Franklin. They were all ruling class, and General Charles Lee and General Richard Lee, they're aristocrats, and Richard Lee was Robert E. Lee's dad, and so now you have another aristocrat leading that attempt to go back to the Articles of Confederation. That's why it's called the Confederacy, because they wanted the Articles of Confederation back. Yes, they had slaves. That was another issue, but that wasn't the main. That was just a made-up issue that had a lot of emotion to it. And same thing as the War of 1812. That was about esquires in the Congress delegating for these people that had said that no titles of nobility shall be granted. And they just brought up the issue of American sailors being conscripted by British ships to serve on British ships, and that was an issue, yes, but that was not the issue. And for the revolution, they brought up this stupid tea bullshit. Now you got even a Tea Party bullshit to further the bullshit, when in fact it was the currency. That's what the deal was. This debt slavery interest producing debt slavery interest-bearing currency that we have today in the Federal Satanic Bank that believes in their twisted mind that we owe them $33 to $38 trillion. When I don't know of anybody around here that could live long enough to count to $1 trillion.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. Now, before we go any further, let me ask Karma if she has any questions. Do you, Karma? I don't know if she's hearing it, so... the next thing, that's why...
Let me ask you, you had 19 people before with your conversation, did you not?
Yeah.
Were you unable to hook up with them?
Yeah, it was just me, Karma, and you for that. Naroki was here a second ago, and he had to leave, I guess. So, but it's fine because, I said.
Jaffe? What about Jaffe?
Jaffe, I have no clue. He didn't even answer. So.
Okay.
Right now, though, I'm okay with it because I really wanted to get the interview with you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
that's fine. That's fine. I'm ready to field whatever question that I might have produced in you.
You've done you've done good so far. I mean, you've said a lot of good stuff. Now that we've covered indoctrination and we've covered the maritime law. Is there a way you can dive a little deeper into the papacy? And I noticed you said the Jesuits, but let's... Okay,
I'll tell you about that. The Jesuits started out as a Society of Jesus. They were the ones that conducted the Spanish Inquisition. They did those horrible things to anybody that wouldn't bow down to the Roman Catholic Church and pay what do they call them? Pay so that your loved one will go to heaven. What was the name of those things? Anyway, people were paying the church to have God take your beloved to heaven. So no matter how evil you might have been, if you paid enough, you could go to heaven. There's a word for that, and it won't come to me right this minute. It will eventually along the way.
Tithes?
No. It's tithes is what you pay on a regular basis every time you show up. No, that this is called, you paid when one of your beloved died and you wanted to, or you sinned or something like that. You go and tell the priest about your sin and give him some money to cover the sin. Indulgences, they were paying indulgence. They were indulging the Roman Catholic Church. That's what they were called, indulgences. That's what Luther was about. You've heard of Luther, Martin Luther, haven't you?
Yeah, I've heard about Martin Luther, yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's where the Lutherans come from, the Protestants as well. They were protesting paying a priest to talk to God for them. They said, we can talk to God ourselves. We don't need to pay you to. And they said, well, we'll just drive a stake right through your body. We'll torture you in some kind of a bull-looking thing or something in an oven so you die a horrible death. We'll teach you not to bow down to the Roman Catholic Church. That was the Spanish Inquisition, and it was led by Spanish Alumbrados, and that's who started the Society of Jesus, this evil motherfucking misnomer, lying satanic thing. And that became the Jesuits. And in 1773, Pope Clement XIV issued a bull, as they say in the church. The church is divided between evil and good, so it's very, very difficult for people to see what the church is when all the evil is being presented, and whatever good there is, it's basically just with the devout, like my cousins and other Mexicans that are actually believe in Christ and try to lead a Christian life. Those Catholics are actually Christians, but those popes up there, they're not Christian at all. They're pagan, demonic demons, demon-possessed, satanic bastards, and they'll lie to you to your face without even any thought to it at all, just as a regular thing. And just like you're lied to in school when they tell you that we won the revolution, and they tell you that you're kin to a monkey, and they tell you that the highest level of the class system is the upper class, and leave out the ruling class, and don't tell you about that part of it. Or they don't tell you about the papacy. They don't tell you about the satanic currency. They don't tell you any of those things. And it's what's called official curriculum, and also the official narrative on the media, on Fox News and CNN and all those. Oh, we're kicking Russia's ass. We're spending good money. It's money well spent. It's money, borrowed money. It's not, we don't have any money. We borrowed money, and we borrowed money so that Ukraine will have the ability to pick up the trash in the morning and send some more money to the military industrial complex to make some new weapons after giving them all the old weapons to appear to be on their side, when in fact they're not on anybody's side except the bank's side.
Yeah.
And that bank is satanic.
Yep. Now, that actually is a perfect entryway to what I wanted to mention to you after the papacy and the Jesuits. Now, you mentioned...
Let me add a couple more things to that, okay?
Okay.
When you have the Gray Pope, there's 13 families, and one of the families that most people are familiar with is the Medici, and that was during the time of Michelangelo because of the Sistine Chapel. And that's why that name is kind of familiar to people. But today, it's the Orsini family that's at the head, and he's referred to as the Caesar. The heads of the family, the ruler of the families, has always been called the Caesar ever since they killed Caesar. And so the Caesar today is Orsini. The Caesar in Washington's day, referred to in that document as the Most High, was the Caesar as well. Okay, so now below the head of the families, the Caesar is the Black Pope. The Caesar is called the Great Pope. You don't ever hear about him. And then you've got the Black Pope below him. He's the superior general of the papacy's military, and all the members of the military order of the papacy are referred to as Jesuits. Remember, I told you that they changed their name from Jesuits to, maybe I did mention it, but in 1773, when they killed the Pope, for banning them, they changed their name from Jesuit to Illuminati. And
yeah, that was the first time you mentioned it. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I've heard you say it previously in other conversations.
Well, Fauci is an Illuminati. He's the highest paid Federalist. All Federalists are under the control of the papacy. And no matter if they're Federalists in Mexico, they call themselves Federales. I know them quite well. I used to be a marijuana merchant they called a smuggler back then.
Now, you mentioned also what I'm taking it as is the city within the city of London. Now, is that what you're discussing when you were discussing that earlier?
That is referred to as the corporation of the city-state of the inner city of London, on the
Exactly.
side of a Roman, on the site of a Roman fort, just the way that the District of Criminals is on the site of Rome, Maryland. Did you know that?
Uh, I've heard people talk about that, but
Rome, Maryland has got a river next to it, and it's got 7 hills. Same thing as Rome.
yeah. Now, on the city, could you kind of go into that a little bit deeper and kind of explain to people what the city consists of and what it's about, and like?
Are you talking about the empire of the city?
Yes.
Well, it consists of the District of Criminals, otherwise referred to as the Corporation of the City-State of Washington, District of Columbia, and the Financial Center, referred to as the Corporation of the City-State of the Inner City of London, and the brains behind everything, otherwise known as the Corporation of the City-State of the Vatican. That is what the Roman Republic has evolved into, and that is the only way to use that word, evolve, because we certainly didn't evolve. We were created just the way we look.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to that luck, but I wanted to cover luck a little bit, because
Okay.
I used to be Lucky George. You know why I was Lucky George? And that's the only, I've had 10 or more nicknames in my life, and that's the only one I gave to myself. And the reason was because I had so much good luck and so much bad luck.
So a little bit of both.
And then I started thinking about it. I started thinking about luck and Loki. You know who Loki is?
Oh yeah. Well, the trickster.
Luck and Loki sound pretty close to, they sound pretty close to the same thing, right? Luck, Loki, luck, Loki, luck.
Yep.
You hear this resemblance? How about Lucifer? Can you hear Lucifer in there? It's L-U-C, just like luck, L-U-C.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are the same thing.
Now,
And
earlier,
Satan, you've heard of beginner's luck, right?
right.
That's Satan pulling you in.
Mm-hmm.
I know, because I had beginner's luck. The first marijuana I ever brought across the Rio Grande was Acapulco Gold.
Okay, so Federal Reserve, you mentioned that. Is there a way we can get a little bit more information from you on the Federal Reserve?
The best way to get information on the Federal Reserve is Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. And Griffin, what's his name, came up with the creature from Jekyll Island. He just plagiarized Eustace Mullins, that was a pupil of a man that was speaking against these moneyed people, money market people, and had been put in an insane asylum. And the first thing he told Eustace Mullins when somebody told him to go check him out was find out what's going on with this Federal Reserve. And he did find out. And that's your best source.
So what's your take on the Federal Reserve, though? I mean, what's your personal beliefs when it comes to that?
I believe it's satanic.
You don't have any...
It's the devil's work, because the Federal Reserve is Federalists, and Federalists are under the satanic papacy. Everything they do is against the people.
Right. Now,
They say that we borrowed $200 billion to go over there and kill Russians, and it's money well spent. Gray, one of those stupid motherfuckers up there said it's money well spent. You know, we've ruined the Russian army, which is total fucking bullshit. Russia's stronger now than at the very beginning of this bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the Federal Reserve and the history of it, do You feel that there's ties between the Federal Reserve and the elites where they control the money being passed off to people directly without having to go through the government?
Between the Federal Reserve and what?
And the elites?
Oh, well, the elites are the ones that put it into place.
All right, there we go.
And Theodore Roosevelt helped Wilson, and those people that were opposed to it were put on the Titanic. They were lured into the Titanic, and you know what happened to them?
Yep, they sunk to the bottom.
And the ship's captain was a Jesuit, like Fauci, and he knew those waters very well. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he got him a boat to get on, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Well, there you go then.
Now, before we go any further, maybe Karma can talk now. I noticed she had to go off and come back on.
But
Do you
I
have
wanted
any?
to say, it was the Democrats and
I don't
Republicans
have any
working
questions.
together.
Okay. What'd you say, Karma? She said she's just listening, I believe is what she said.
Yeah, I said I'm just listening. I don't have any questions.
Okay.
All right. Have you heard much,
I'm pretty sure
or
she...
did you just come in?
Yeah, no. I've heard a good bit of it in regards to like the Fed and different laws and just how but I've heard you speak before in regards to your standpoint. I guess I thought this was going to be more like more of your life story type thing, like where you
Well, I
come
could.
from.
I
And we
could tell
heard
you.
about your elections and stuff like that when you were in 8th grade and what caused you to start running. I think they said that you're like running for Texas sheriff or something like that. If you like to elaborate a little bit more on that, that'd be cool. But other than
I
that,
am okay. I'll tell you about that because that's what I'm in right now. I've got another year until November the 24th next year, or whenever the election is 4th or 24th, whatever it is. And maybe I'm thinking Thanksgiving, but be that as it may, it's in November of next year, and I've got until then to teach the idea of common law jurisdiction and the difference between common law jurisdiction and admiralty maritime law jurisdiction, and how that came about. And it came about in 1938 when the bank took legal possession of the corporation, because FDR, a cousin of Theodore Roosevelt that helped bring the bank into being, pawned the corporation of the United States to the bank, and the terms were payment in gold. You've heard of Roosevelt taking up the gold, haven't you?
yes,
He started taking up the gold when he had taken all the gold out of Fort Knox. When people say there's no gold in Fort Knox, well, that's the reason, because FDR gave it to the papacy, and then he took up everybody else's gold and gave it to the papacy, and they said more gold to satisfy the terms of this contract. Remember what I told you, that legal is contract law? To the letter of the law. Their contract said such and such amount of gold, and there wasn't that amount of gold in the Corporation of the United States to satisfy the terms. So the papacy, otherwise known as the Federal Reserve Bank, took legal possession of the corporation, and the judges take silent judicial notice. That was the highest judges at the time, attorney generals and people like that, and they take silent judicial notice of the usurpation of common law jurisdiction, which was used up until 1938, right after 1937, when they passed the Marijuana Tax Act to keep hemp fuel out of the picture, in case you didn't know. And, you know, Rockefeller is Rothschild's bitch, and Rothschild is King Charles's bitch, and he steps out of line, the papacy will assassinate the bastards, and they know it. And they get plenty of money and plenty of everything for their service, so they're quite happy the way that they are. They're not going to try to usurp the papacy, because they know that what happens when you try that. They have agents all over the world ready to take your head off anytime that you get sideways with the assholes, especially if you're a billionaire, somebody that's got a lot of pull. You've got to be walking on very tender feet with these bastards, because you have so much attention, and they want the attention that's given to you, with you being subservient to the fucking love of money, as it were, the root of all evil. That which brings you the power to be a billionaire. Why you want to be a billionaire?
That's good. Now, that is a good question, though. I mean, what possessed you into wanting to run for sheriff, and how is that going with you?
Well, I'm not running for sheriff. I'm teaching.
Oh, you're teaching.
Because people don't know anything about common law jurisdiction or admiralty maritime law jurisdiction, and here's the other thing: you go to onevoicenow.org. That is an idea that David Frank came up with in Indiana. He's a great patriot. And it is a way for us to have a podium and a voting booth, just like Dancing with the Stars. You remember Dancing with the Stars?
Yeah.
You could vote on the dancer that you liked, right?
Right.
As a matter of fact, Stupid Perry was up there. Did you know that?
Oh, there were quite a few stupid people up there, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, well, he didn't even know what fucking department he was supposed to take over.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, it's the same concept, except that in this case, you're not dancing. You're up on the podium telling the people what you think should be happening in your community. If you think that you should have more drag queens and more transvestites, and they should be uplifted and put above heterosexuals and Christians, anything like that, well, then you can stand up there and tell everybody we need more of these kind of people, and everybody around you can say, yeah, great idea, or you're get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
We don't agree with you at all. And that gives you democracy, because we don't have democracy now. We have assholes acting just like they acted during the revolution, when they were acting like they were with the Patriots, when in fact all they were trying to do is bring the Federalists in with their Federalist papers. Finally, Patrick Henry became wise to them, and he wrote the Anti-Federalist papers. And the reason we have a Bill of Rights is because he knew that he had lost, because he saw some of the aristocrats that his men had tarred and feathered and taken their plantations and arrested them. He saw them at the Constitutional Convention. He realized he was dealing with monarchists, and in the Constitution is a little clause that keeps everything still in King George III's. The thing started when King George II, but King George III finished it, and it kept him in control of everything. And all the contracts issued to the Virginia Company by the charter to colonize North America to this day are active because of this little clause. And I'll tell you, I had to study and finally came to realize what it meant. And this is a clause. Ex post facto laws are prohibited to the federal and state governments. Can you repeat that?
Ex facto laws are prohibited.
Ex post.
Oh, ex post.
Facto laws are prohibited to the federal and state governments. Do you know what that means?
Not ex facto, or ex.
Ex post means after the fact.
After the fact.
After the fact of these laws put into this Constitution, no law can be passed against this law that we just, and that law says that the contracts that are in place at that moment remain in place. They were, and why do they remain in place? Because they were not brought up at all. There was no discussion about these contracts issued to the Virginia Company. Okay, so all the colonies stayed in King George's control. That it takes an ex post facto law like we could pass right today to nullify that. And we could if we got together as one, and we can do that through onevoicenow.org. That's the importance of that, and you need to go up there and see what he's got to say, because I promote him.
You've sent me a link. I've already joined up on it and read a lot of that. It's pretty good stuff. So just so you know, I've already got that set up.
Okay, but here's the deal. to get that to the public broadcast system, you can't go to the city hall because it talks against the city hall. That's the city people there, that what do you call them, city commissioners or whatever. They're under control pretty much as anyone that makes it up to Washington D.C. You know, they've got to be under some kind of control before they have the funds to promote themselves. Okay, it's not a matter of the voters; it's a matter of the funds that they have.
Yeah.
How much exposure can they give themselves? All right, and the people that want them in there will give them the money to do so. So he speaks against that. If you've listened to him extensively, he speaks against the city hall. So we can't go to city hall to get the city hall to help us. We have to, as another individual I talked to, we've got to swarm the public broadcast system like NPR or whatever that in your town and city that provides the public broadcast system. We got to swarm them with telephone calls where they can't do any business until they allow we, the public, to enter onevoicenow.org into their programming, so that there's a program for us to get together on. And that's going to pretty much eliminate the city council and the state governments and the federal government, because democracy doesn't call for those things. Democracy calls for the people having a voice. And we don't have a voice. Have they asked you if you agree to any of this things that they're doing today?
Yeah. Now, whenever you were just talking too, right there, you were mentioning the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, okay?
Yes.
Just so that everybody who's listening understands, could you kind of explain that? Just kind of focus on those two subjects. Like, what is the Federalist and what are the Anti-Federalists? You know?
Okay. The Federalists are subjects of Rome, and the Anti-Federalists are Articles of Federation patriots.
Okay. So, whenever the Constitution was put in place, now this is what was supposed to have taken the place of the Articles of Confederation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
and so they came up with their own thing, and they're under the papacy, because the ones that made it possible for signing that treaty, those were all ruling class individuals that signed the treaty, including Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, and Adams, and Hamilton. And Hamilton and the other guys wrote the Federalist Papers. And the reason that the Patriot Vice President Aaron Burr killed Hamilton in a duel of honor was because Hamilton was a shill for the Bank of England. Remember me telling you that the Bank of England was a satanic subsidiary of the Satanic Vatican Bank?
yes.
That's why Hamilton was killed, not the bullshit that they tell you about some woman being offended or something like that. That's just bullshit that they make up. They're always making up bullshit. So people, it sounds good to people. Fighting for a lady's honor. Oh, well, that's really good. Well, the asshole killed Hamilton. Ooh. And then they said no more dueling. Why didn't they want any more dueling in the East? Because they didn't want any more shills killed in honor.
Exactly.
In the West, they said, fuck you, we're going to kill anybody that thinks that they're going to draw faster than I do.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Anti-Federalists, what's your take on the Anti-Federalists? How were they formed and what are they about?
Well, there are the Anti-Federalist Papers, if you want to look it up and read them yourself. I just know that the Anti-Federalists were patriots that wanted to have sovereign states, state militias, and non-interest-bearing currency based on production, otherwise could be referred to as just practically enhanced barter. In other words, you produce 100 chickens, we're going to print enough currency to represent those 100 chickens. And that way, somebody that drops a colt that we're going to print enough currency to buy 100 chickens. Well, now you can just buy one chicken at a time if you want to, because the currency is there for you to do so. That's enhanced barter. And you can't do it by going to the gold standard, because that's not the issue. The issue is it interest-bearing, debt slavery producing satanic currency, or is it enhancing barter by using non-interest bearing currency based on the production that it's representing? You build a ship, you print enough currency to represent that ship. Right now, our currency represents nothing, just zeros and ones made up in some satanic mind.
Yeah, fiat. That's one thing that I've always talked to people about too. Like the money is basically fiat, which is just make believe. It goes off of it doesn't go off of a gold standard, you know. And I'm glad that you brought up
the gold. Don't even talk to me about gold.
Yeah.
All I gotta say is eat your gold. That's all I gotta say to gold. Eat your gold.
Well,
my favorite Roman story is a Roman that went somewhere, I think west of Rome. I was reading about it anyway, and he goes to steal gold from somebody else that has gold, and he got gold. His army got conquered, and he got all the gold that he could swallow down his throat, melted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite Roman, and my most awfulest Roman stories when they were having a birthday party for one of the Roman higher-ups there, one of the children from the nobility there, and they were going to have some Christians be eaten by the lions, and so they didn't take off. They nailed them to the corral there, and they were moaning and groaning from having nails driven through their hands to hold them in place. And they went out there and said, "Would you hold it down? You know, we're trying to have a party here."
Damn. Must have been Nero.
It's like these goddamn football games right now. I go to my Blues Jam, and it's nothing like it used to be, because people they want to know what the fucking score is going to be. That just waste of money bullshit.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you have playing football. I used to do that too. I was a good football player, and track, and just whatever was available to do, except for basketball. I never was any good at basketball, but they're just getting youngsters ready for boot camp, and trying to tell them that those Russians are going to come kill you, or those Chinese are going to come kill you, or those Iranians are going to come kill you, and fool them into fighting for their country, which isn't even a country, it's a fucking corporation.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to all the stuff that's going on today and all the stuff that you've just discussed, I mean, what's your take on everything when it comes to that in general, like the whole situation of stuff going on in the world? I mean, what's your take on the whole thing as a whole?
The papacy is satanic, and Satan hates God's creation. That's my take on it. That's why so many people are dying, not only from bombs falling on them, from hunger, from droughts produced by technology, from floods produced by technology, anything to disrupt the peace and glory that God intends for us.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it right there. It's just whenever it comes to like the food shortages and stuff like that, do you think that a lot of that is being produced pretty much? Like, is there food and food sources and stuff being held back, do you think?
Of course.
You know,
of course. And when they talk about Mao Zedong killing millions of people and Stalin killing millions of people, they're not talking about shooting and dropping bombs on people. They're talking about starving people. And how do you starve people? You kill the self-sufficient farmers, the farmers that don't go along with the bullshit. They say That sounds like total bullshit to me. Bam, you're out of here. And then
Yeah.
those people that don't know how to farm don't know how to grow food for themselves. But even if they're sent out to the farms, they just don't have the expertise.
Yeah. I've noticed too, like in we had a conversation in one of my shows the other day, and it's like a lot of these welfare programs we have here in the United States kind of encourages people who live in the country in small towns to move to the city, like they're trying to hurt them.
They're encouraging all these migrants coming up from the south. They're paying them like $2,200 or $2,300 just as soon as they get here, and then they're going to get more help than any American that's been working all their life in their Social Security.
Yeah.
They say, come, we've got this stuff for you. That's why they're coming over here. They're saying, they're not coming over here to bust their ass to build their family back up like the immigrants that came from Ireland and Italy, and they were fucked with because they were immigrants. They came here to work. There was no handout handed to them. You see the difference?
Yeah, the one thing that I noticed when we were talking about that the other day too, and it's like even in that aspect, like things have gotten so crazy when it comes to this immigration thing. You know what I mean? Like and for me, I'm finding it kind of odd that it's actually like taken off as bad as what it really has, because if you really stop and look at it, I mean, migrants coming to the United States was a big deal. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many Irish people just freely came through New York without any kind of paperwork,
I still got the papers from my Swedish grandfather coming over here and rejecting his allegiance to the King of Sweden and giving it to the federal government.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I'm going to tell you something else about these people coming across the border and that wall thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all bullshit. I used to be a smuggler, okay? And I know it got to the point where a fucking rabbit couldn't cross across there without them knowing that somebody had been across there. Okay, they don't need a fence to know that somebody came across that river. They got to the point where you're not going to cross this river because we can sense that you're crossing the river.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's from the river was my swimming pool ever since I was a youngster. Want to know a little bit more of my past? I grew up out in the country, basically, walking around. I didn't have a television to sit and stare at. The woods. Wanted to join the Boy Scouts. My dad, so we could go camping. My dad says, he pointed to the woods. Get with it. You want to go camping? Get with it.
There's the woods. Go. That's pretty much.
Go do it.
That's pretty much it.
I kind of figured that I was born 200 years too late. I was going to be I would have been a mountain man,
Well, you can be a mountain man right now if you want to. I mean, it's your choice. I
prefer being able to go to a blues club and jamming out with some blues musicians.
Yeah, there you go. But it's like, that's another thing though that people today just don't understand either. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, you want to be a mountain man sometimes, heck, you can do it. You're not bound to these restrictions where you have to be what everybody else expects you to be. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's true. But if I wasn't a blues man, I wouldn't care nothing about being in the city. And my sons have moved out of the city. None of my sons live here in the city anymore. Uh-huh. Even though one of my sons is in Fort Worth, in the city of Fort Worth, but the rest of them are out in rural situations.
Yeah.
I have 5 sons.
When I was younger, I was big on living in the city and stuff, but like after I hit about 30, 35 years old, I started really enjoying the small town kind of atmosphere. It's not as bad as what I thought it would be.
Yeah, one part of me is for that, but I would have to. I got 3 sons within 30 miles of me here, and I got work. I mean, I still work. I'm 70 years old and I'm still working. I don't want any handouts from the government. They always saying, well, we've got, $3,000 for you. We got this and that and the other. And we've got fucking doctors that'll give you prescriptions as well.
Yeah. Yep.
That's poison. That's how they get rid of old people.
Yeah.
If you want to sit on your ass and do nothing, it's almost like taking a fucking, excuse the language, a suicide pill, sitting on your ass watching TVs. It'll lead to your death because your body's not working, your brain's not working, and you're just sitting there vegetating and eating crap, more than likely.
Exactly. Now, we've come up to the end of the hour. Before we go, though, I'd like to have you kind of give yourself a plug, let everybody know where they can contact you and anything that you want people to know about how to find you and maybe read about the stuff you're interested in, stuff like that. Would you?
If you go to the Constitutional Labor Party, first thing you come to is the Treaty of Paris of 1763, and then you come to the Treaty of Paris of 1783, and then you come to my teachers, Howard Freeman and Carl. God Almighty. Anyway, he's got Know Your Constitution. He talks about Supreme Court decisions that you can use to protect yourself with, starting with the 1803 Marbury versus Madison. And that Marbury was an attorney that had gotten a federal judge's commission, but they hadn't been delivered to him, and Madison had gotten a hold of him and hadn't put him out there. So they were suing to get their commissions, and they lost because the Constitution says that the president can appoint his own federal judges, and he wasn't in favor of these people. And one of those people in that lawsuit happened to be a Ramsey that I might very well be related to.
Hey, everybody's got a black sheep, Everybody. It's like
everybody's kin to somebody, more or less.
That's right. Now, do you have a website or YouTube or Rumble channel or anything like that?
YouTube, you go to Rattlesnake George,
okay,
and you'll see some of my videos I have speaking about the government and about me against the COVID bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've got that, but I just wanted to make sure that you said it on the stream, you know what I mean, so everybody else knows.
Yeah. So you can go to Sheriff Ramsey on Facebook if you want to give the CIA and the NSA and the which is the other one, the FBI, everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I tell them I'm against them every day, no problem. I'll put my posse on your asses.
I'll tell you what, I love hearing you talk. That's the reason why I wanted you to give this interview, because I love hearing the stuff that you have to say.
Well, like it or not, I may be today's Patrick Henry. I don't want to be that, but I don't see anybody else explaining things the way they're supposed to be explained.
That's the best way to do it, And
that's why we have the Bill of Rights, because Patrick Henry threatened rebellion against Washington if he didn't include it in that monarchy-influenced Constitution. And he knew that we were going to have a fight, so we had to be able to speak, and we had to have weapons so that we can commandeer whatever we need.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, man, you're more than welcome to come back on anytime you want, all right? I mean,
okay.
You are completely welcome. I enjoyed what you had to say. And before you go, I want to let you know that I do have a copy of this being recorded, and I'll send it to you with a link from Google Drive to where you can have a copy of the interview.
I would love to be able to share it with the people around here that I know and my Facebook friends, so that they could hear more than they're likely to hear at any other time.
Okay. And I will send that to you in a personal message. And besides that, I'm also going to have the interview on Rumble, YouTube, Minds.com, and it'll be on Odyssey and BitChute as well. So,
Well, I hope that it reaches good ears that are sick and tired of Satan's work around here. Oh,
okay.
I will say one last thing.
Go ahead.
Before this, I was listening to Pastor Chuck Baldwin from Liberty Fellowship in Billings, Montana.
Yeah.
And he became my pastor when he said that the 501c3, the IRS 501c3 government churches were in bed with the devil, along with all the nonprofits that are making this evil Fed IRS appear to be benevolent. They're letting you give us money so that you don't pay taxes on that money that you're giving us.
Yeah.
That's just keeping the enemy in place, and the enemy is Satan.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and so that I'm going to end it with that because he was talking about today. He was talking. If you go to Liberty Fellowship, he was talking about the liberty, the Israeli attack on the liberty, and how our government went right along. I knew that Johnson. I even heard Johnson say, "I want that goddamn ship to go to the bottom of the sea."
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what they had in mind, and the survivors. He has survivors that have come on his show, and he read what they had said on his show before, and just verified things that I've heard before. But it was such a great. I shared it with my Facebook friends. I had to start over because they kicked me off after I had 5,000 friends and over 1,000 followers, and all kinds of people wanted to be my friends, and I spoke too much truth. I called Lucy from Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
I called her a satanic little bitch. That's because she always pulled the football out and let Charlie Brown fall on his back. I think that's the reason my dad, he had all of the Charlie Brown books, and I think Charlie Brown was kind of like how he looked at his life, you know.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll rest in peace, Dad.
And that's the best way to end it. So I'm going to say thank you for being on here, and I guess we can end the stream and everything.
Well, I want to thank you kindly before I leave as well.
Okay. And I'm more than grateful to having you here. This was a great interview, and thank you very much, George. I appreciate it.
I hope that I made a lot of information available to the folks through the constitutionallaborparty.com, because basically I'm just sharing the things that I've learned along the way so that people don't think I'm just talking. They can go right to the documentation and see it for themselves.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you did that.
Okay, but bye now.
Bye. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. With that, we're going to bring this to an end, and thank you for being here.